If you turn your head, you'll see how easily people twist differences into entertainment. Imagine being called a freak by those who once called you a friend. Could you label someone that way, just because of their face, habits, or how they move through the world? Tell us below. Today, we're not talking about myths or monsters, but something far stranger. The real people once labeled as freaks that history has buried under shame and spectacle. But not anymore, because we pulled them back from history. So don't blink. What's coming next will blow your mind and leave you shocked. Number 15. Barbara Ursler, the bearded maiden of Augsburg. In 17th century Augsburg, whispers spread faster than sermons about a woman with a beard as thick as any soldier's. Barbara Ursler was born in 1629, her face covered with dark, coarse hair that grew heavier with age. Portraits painted of her still survive: fine lace collar, calm eyes, and a full beard that defied everything her century demanded of women. Exhibited before nobles and priests, she was examined like a puzzle, not a person. Physicians wrote long reports on her monstrous femininity, while artists turned her stillness into spectacle. Yet in every painting, her gaze remains unmoved, as if she's the one studying them. No scandal, no madness followed her, just the enduring discomfort of a woman who wouldn't shave her identity to please a world addicted to symmetry. Her image became a mirror the 1600s never wanted, proof that beauty has always been more rebellion than design. Number 14. Wang Fang, the foot-handed woman. In a remote Chinese province in the early 1900s, Wang Fang was born without arms, but her body decided the rules differently. Her feet grew unusually flexible, the toes lengthening, capable of writing, painting, even threading needles. By her 20s, she worked in markets, eating and dressing herself with fluid grace that unsettled everyone who watched. Early photographers turned her into a living curiosity, publishing her image under the label "the handless prodigy." Her calm expression in those photographs unnerved viewers. She didn't seem tragic or proud, just indifferent to their stares. She painted landscapes holding the brush between her toes, her strokes clean and precise. Few records remain of her later life. Her existence vanished like smoke in a changing country. But one grainy photograph endures. Wang sitting cross-legged, a brush between her toes, staring directly into the lens. She wasn't inspiration or horror. She was simply proof that adaptation is quiet defiance. Number 13. Simon Metz, the pinhead prodigy. Brooklyn, 1909. A small man in a tailored suit sits on a bench, smiling faintly while children laugh nearby. That's Simon Metz, better known to sideshow audiences as Schlitzy's quieter successor, the pinhead prodigy. Born with microcephaly, his skull small and sharply sloped, he was sold to performers at a young age. Yet Simon wasn't the caricature the posters promised. He spoke in fragments, but remembered everything, repeating whole conversations word for word days later. Handlers used that trick to amuse crowds, calling him a mimic, a human echo. His acts were simple: bow, recite, smile, then leave before people's laughter turned uneasy. Behind the tents, he collected marbles and lined them in perfect rows, whispering names for each one. Medical records list him as harmless and trainable. History lists him as nothing. But a century later, his photograph remains. A man half forgotten, staring somewhere past the camera, as if memory itself refused to let him vanish. Let's move on. Number 12. Jean-Pierre Mazet, the glass-boned acrobat. Paris, 1883. A man steps onto a narrow wire, thin as thread. Every move he makes sounds like risk, and for Jean-Pierre Mazet, it literally was. Born with osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bone disease, he broke over 200 bones before age 20. Yet he refused to stop performing. Mazette's act wasn't about daring height or applause. It was a negotiation with pain. He balanced, bowed, and leapt with deliberate control, each step a gamble. Audiences held their breath not out of awe, but fear. Doctors begged him to quit, calling his performances suicidal. He laughed them off, claiming stillness hurt more than falling. His final show ended when a railing snapped mid-act, not by his fault, but by bad luck. He survived but disappeared soon after, vanishing from the playbills. The record stopped there, like a wire cut clean in half. Mazette didn't chase immortality, he just refused to let fragility dictate the script. Number 11. Alice Bounds, the Elastic Skin Woman. London's medical halls loved her because she broke their charts. Alice Bounds could pull the skin of her neck to her chin, stretch her arm like wet cloth, and snap it back without pain or mark. Born in the mid-1800s, she became a spectacle for anatomy students who argued whether her elasticity was illness or anomaly. She didn't smile often, just demonstrated her body like a craftsman showing a tool. Reports describe her as polite, distant, and oddly professional, never flinching under the crowd's unease. One surgeon offered to buy her remains in advance. She declined without words. She performed until middle age, earning little, then vanished from record. A single engraving remains, her face blank, fingers gripping her own stretched skin. No storybook ending followed, only silence. The fascination ended when her body stopped moving, but her image still feels like an unanswered question the century never wanted to revisit. Number 10. Admiral Dot, the Miniature Commander. A brass band played louder when he entered the tent. Standing barely 3 feet tall, Admiral Dot strutted with the composure of a man twice his height. Born Leopold Kahn in 1859, he was discovered by P.T. Barnum and instantly molded into a symbol of dignity wrapped in spectacle. Dressed in tailored military coats and medals, he saluted audiences with a practiced glare that made even adults return the gesture. Off stage, he was a sharp businessman, touring under his own management by his 20s. The press followed him as a novelty, never realizing he was outsmarting their mockery. When the dime museums collapsed, he disappeared from the papers, opening a small shop instead. His uniform survives in photographs, brass buttons gleaming, posture straight. No tragedy clings to his name, only the faint irony that the smallest performer in Barnum's empire was one of the few who walked away untamed. Get ready for Number 9. CeeLo the Seal Boy, Stanley Berent. The stage lights caught nothing unusual, just a man sitting calmly in a chair. Then he lifted a cigarette with his mouth, struck a match, and inhaled. Born in 1901 without arms or legs, Stanley Berent, known to the crowds as CeeLo, wasn't presented as tragic or miraculous. He was methodical, confident, almost mechanical in precision. He folded paper with his lips, played saxophone, and poured drinks faster than most men with 4 limbs. His humor carried the act. The crowd stayed for the timing, not the pity. Newspapers called him cheerful, a word that meant digestible. He performed until his 60s, long after sideshows faded into relics. One surviving photograph shows him mid-laugh, cigarette dangling, surrounded by onlookers unsure whether to smile or look away. He didn't need arms to control attention. He only needed stillness, the kind that made the audience realize who was actually performing who. Number 8. Eli Bowen, the Legless Acrobat. In 1844, a child born without legs grew up balancing on his hands, the missing limbs replaced by strength. Eli Bowen turned anatomy into discipline, his body a tool rather than spectacle. By his 20s, he was the star of traveling circuses, performing somersaults and rope climbs with frightening control. Crowds came for deformity. They left whispering about precision. Dressed impeccably, with a trimmed mustache and polished boots attached to his stumps, Bowen refused to perform the fool. He introduced himself as an acrobat, never a curiosity. For decades, he worked the circuit from New York to London, often paired with Charles Tripp, the armless man, to perform synchronized stunts. He lived past 70, dying quietly at home, his posters later burned with the tents that made him famous. The few photos that remain don't show a crippled man or an exhibition. They show balance, frozen mid-air, the human frame functioning by will alone. Number 7. Charles Tripp, the Armless Wonder. No warm introduction, no slow build, just a man biting a saw handle and cutting wood. Charles Tripp never liked applause. He worked because motion felt normal. Born in Woodstock, Ontario, 1855. No arms, just 2 broad shoulders and legs trained to act like hands. He could drive nails, tie laces, and fold a letter without ever asking for help. When the carnivals found him, he didn't smile or wave. He charged admission and built chairs on stage. Paired with Eli Bowen, the legless acrobat, he performed routines that looked more like choreography than sympathy bait. No tragedy followed, no headlines screamed when he died in 1930. Only the memory of a man who made function look foreign. The freak show tried to own him. He sold it furniture instead. Number 6. Matthew Buchinger, the limbless magician. Imagine a chessboard covered with ink, the pieces replaced by letters so tiny they can only be read with a glass. That's how Matthew Buchinger signed his name. Born in Nuremberg, 1674, without arms or legs, he built his own tools, his own fame, and his own limitations, just to tear them apart. He performed illusions across Europe, hiding cards, manipulating cups, playing flute and bagpipes with devices no one else could operate. The courts of Hanover and London called him a marvel, though his face in portraits shows boredom, not pride. By 40, he'd married 4 times and fathered a small army of children. When nobles asked what secret let him perform the impossible, he answered, practice. Centuries later, his microscript still survives, a psalm contained within a single curl of ink. He didn't inspire, he disrupted. Buchinger's entire career was one long statement. Limits exist only for people who need them. And now it's time for Number 5. Mary Ann Bevan, the ugliest woman in the world. A door opened, and the room steadied as every gaze locked onto her. London, early 1900s, a trained nurse whose acromegaly reshaped her face into angles the public wasn't prepared to ignore. The widened jaw, the heavy brow, the thickened nose. The sideshow industry didn't waste time. Posters stamped her with a title she never chose, turning her appearance into currency. Crowds filed in expecting chaos or theatrics, but she offered neither. She sat beneath a single lamp, silent, letting the stillness carry the scene. Reporters tried to frame her as a spectacle. She gave them nothing except presence. Behind the curtains, she worked with the same quiet routine she used during her nursing years, folding clothes, writing lists, avoiding mirrors. The exhibitions lasted for years, then faded without ceremony. Today, only a handful of photographs survive, stark, frontal, free of soft lighting. They don't tell a story, they preserve a face the public named, packaged, and eventually forgot. Number 4. Margaret Krasinska, the Polish giantess. Reports from the late 1800s mention her without flourish, just measurements and brief remarks about a woman whose height disrupted doorways. Margaret Krasinska moved through Warsaw and Vienna with a deliberate pace, her frame rising far above the people hired to escort her. Tailors stitched gowns that required extra seams. Hotels kept special bed frames in storage for the nights she passed through. She was shown to guests in private halls, not circuses, where physicians compared notes and argued over figures that never matched. Some claimed 7 feet, others nearly 8, a disagreement that followed her across Europe. Portraits place her beside ordinary furniture, the scale doing the work for her. There's no record of performances. No indication she ever accepted the traveling show contracts she was offered. Instead, her name surfaced and vanished in local papers, leaving behind little more than sketches and unsigned photographs. The details are minimal, the impression unavoidable. A presence so large it needed no stage. Number 3. Ella and Eliza Pritchard. Crowds didn't first notice the dresses or the posture. They noticed the pause that followed them into a room. Ella and Eliza Pritchard shared one torso, yet their reactions never synced. One turned sharply toward noise while the other continued whatever she was doing, creating a strange rhythm that unsettled anyone watching. Born in England in the 19th century, they entered public exhibitions not with choreographed routines, but with quiet demonstrations of how daily tasks worked when two minds controlled one frame. Observers documented the mismatched habits, different handwriting styles, different preferences, different responses to questions asked at the same moment. Their appearances were brief, often unannounced, handled by organizers who preferred unpredictability to polished showmanship. They traveled for several years before vanishing from advertisements, leaving behind no signature performance, only scattered notes describing an odd dual presence that refused symmetry. No portraits define them, only descriptions of reactions, stares that lasted too long, and two faces that seldom agreed on where to look. Number 2. Lazarus and Joannes Baptista Colloredo. Anyone expecting symmetry found the opposite with the Colloredo brothers. Lazarus walked, spoke, and gestured like any man of the 17th century Europe, while his undeveloped twin, Joannes Baptista, hung from his chest, limbs small, head moving just enough to unsettle spectators who weren't ready for that faint stir of life. Accounts from Genoa describe Lazarus traveling through courts and marketplaces, presenting himself formally before nobles while avoiding attention from the streets. Witnesses noted the contrast, one brother aware and composed, the other responding only with reflexive motions that physicians struggled to explain. Exhibitors tried to push dramatic narratives onto them, but Lazarus kept the presentations brief, sometimes covering his twin with a cloth during travel to avoid confrontation. Printed pamphlets circulated with crude illustrations, rarely accurate, usually exaggerated for effect. After several years of controlled appearances across Europe, the trail thins. Only scattered reports remain, short mentions of a man whose presence disrupted expectations, accompanied by a silent twin whose existence was recorded more as observation than identity. Number 1. Jean-Baptiste dos Santos. Lisbon's old registries mention a performer whose silhouette alone caused arguments. 3 legs, 2 full arms, and an additional pair of smaller limbs positioned near the hips, each one capable of slight motion. Jean-Baptiste dos Santos didn't rely on theatrics. The body itself drew every stare before he said a word. Contemporary physicians documented him with brisk notes, avoiding speculation and focusing on measurements, joint flexibility, and the unusual independence of the extra leg. Travelers wrote about seeing him walk with a rhythm that didn't match any known gait, a pattern that shifted depending on whether he used the third leg for balance or display. Exhibition managers pushed for exaggerated demonstrations, yet eyewitness accounts suggest he preferred calm presentations, letting proximity do the work. No grand storyline follows him, only fragments, posters with bold lettering, a few anatomical sketches, and brief references to a performer who refused dramatic narratives. His presence lingered in reports long after he left the stage, mostly as a physical puzzle without a clear explanation. Across every name we uncovered, one thing stays clear. History keeps strange corners hidden until someone has the nerve to lift the dust. You stayed with this journey from start to finish, and that alone keeps these forgotten figures from sinking back into silence. Your time here matters more than you think, and I appreciate you giving it. If you want the next descent into the shadows even darker, sharper, and wilder, then make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons that keep this channel alive. Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell us who rattled your mind the most, and get ready for the next story. And again, thanks for watching.